Hi, this is Hal Ruth, and it's time for your Equalizer 9 tip of the week. The tip of the week this week is How the Mighty Fall, and it's inspired by the book written by Jim Collin called How the Mighty Fall and Why Some Companies Never Give In. I'm amazed that so many people don't know about this book. When they think Jim Collin, they think about Good to Great or Built to Last, which are fantastic books. I recommend reading those, of course. But I love this book. I've read it, I guess, 3 times now. It was written in 2009. And I think it's very timely that we look at the principles that he talks about in this book. Because, and here's why, the economy is doing great. It has been doing great for quite a while now. And but we're probably, let's just face it, a recession is going to come within the next, probably 2 to 3 years, and maybe even sooner. But as a result of the economy doing so well, it masks or hides some of the serious problems that companies have right now. And I'm going to give you a story, repeat a story that Jim Collin talks about in the book that I think tells this story very well. He and his wife are in Colorado, and they decided that they were going to hike to the top of one of the 13,000 foot peaks there in Colorado. And so they embark on the trip through the trails and through the passes. And at the 11,000 foot mark, Jim states that he was starting to succumb from the thinness of the air, and it was starting to get to him. And he fell behind his wife, and she just kept just trekking on. And he remembers looking up at her and thinking, wow, look at my wife. She is the picture of fitness. I'm struggling. She is just moving on. Well, 2 months after that hike, his wife was diagnosed with some pretty serious breast cancer, and it required 2 mastectomies. And he remembers back to that time when they only 2 months prior they were walking, or they were going up that mountainside, and she was the picture of health. And he said that at the very moment that she was that picture of fitness and health, the cancer was already inside of her, and it just had not manifested itself yet and had not revealed itself yet. And if you think about that, what the metaphor that he's trying to get at is a lot of companies are the exact same way. They look good from the outside, they look good from the inside, things are great, but the cancer that is potentially going to bring them down or could cause serious damage is already present. And so he wrote this book basically studying what are the stages of a company that is in decline. And he looked at companies in the past that had failed, and he came up with the commonalities. And so he concluded that they go through 5 stages. And the 5 stages, if I can flip them real quick here, I hope, are: stage 1 was hubris, born of success. Stage 2 was undisciplined pursuit of more. And then stage 3 is denial of risk and peril. And then stage 4 is grasping for salvation. And stage 5 is capitulation to irrelevance or death. And so what I want to talk to you about today, though, is stage 1. And the reason I want to talk to you about stage 1 is because this is where, if we can make impact early, we don't have to go through the pain of capitulation or grasping for salvation later. But it's very hard to see the disease in stage 1. Jim Collin, and I'll read to you here, he said, I've come to see institutional decline like a staged disease. Harder to detect, but easier to cure in the early stages. Easier to detect, but harder to cure in the later stages. An institution can look strong on the outside, but already be sick on the inside, dangerously on the cusp of a precipitous fall. So what we want to talk about is, I want to talk about some of the characteristics. So maybe you can look internally in your company. These are the characteristics of stage 1. which is the hubris stage, born of success. So I'm going to go through, he has 5 markers or characteristics of stage 1. The first one is success, entitlement, and arrogance. And basically he says that it's when companies start to believe that their success is deserved rather than a fortuitous, fleeting, or even hard-earned success, that they feel like they deserve it or they earn it. So the next marker for stage 1 is a neglect of a primary flywheel. And what he means by flywheel is that core business. It's that business that built the success of the company, where it's the cash cow of the company. And so these companies in this hubris stage start to neglect the flywheel. They stop paying attention to what got them there because they're so interested in all the other little adventures and startups, and they start to just neglect the flywheel. The third marker of stage 1 is the what replaces the why. And in other words, you hear things like, we're successful because of what we do, specific things we do, rather than we're successful because we understand why we do these things. So that would, in other words, some of these things that we do or what we do may not be working anymore, and we need to analyze that. The fourth marker of that stage 1 is a decline in learning orientation. Basically, where leaders just lose their curiosity, or they lose their inquisitiveness. They just don't look to learn anymore. It's just what they've done thus far in their career has worked. They're going to keep doing it. And then the fifth marker of stage 1 is discounting the role of luck. I found this one a little interesting because I think most of us overachievers think, hey, I don't rely on luck. I make my own luck. Or you heard the expression that luck is where opportunity meets preparation. So we don't feel like we get any luck. But what he says here is, instead of acknowledging that luck and fortuitous events might have played a helpful role, people begin to presume that success is due entirely to superior qualities of the enterprise and its leadership. In other words, they just think they're smarter than everybody else. Boy, have you seen companies like that? Well, what all 5 of these characteristics point to is stage 1, hubris, pride. They can do no wrong, smarter than everyone else. Very dangerous. So here's what I would suggest. When we're out there looking at developing our strategic framework, we need to always be focused on being humble and being vulnerable. And so a couple ideas that I would suggest to make sure that you're being humble, that you're being vulnerable, that you don't have hubris within your company is this: listen to each other. Leaders, ask for your other leaders in the room and within the company for advice, and be sincere in wanting to hear their advice and listen to them. And then don't just stop there. Take it further. Start talking with the people that are actually doing the work in your company. Ask them for their advice and listen. And don't just do it to humor them, but be sincere. And tell them you don't have all the answers. But anyway, I think that's a big start. The other thing I'll tell you is look outside. Whether it's me or not, get a consultant to come in to give you some fresh eyes on things, to see what you're doing. Or be in a peer group so that you can hear from some of your peer companies about how they're tackling challenges and things they're going through, and get them to look at your company. Because I'm going to tell you, we know this to be the truth, is that things change, and what worked in the past will not work in the future. I'll give you a great example. How many of you knew that Blockbuster had the opportunity to buy Netflix? Netflix, when they were a young company struggling to have enough capital to grow, offered to sell their business to Blockbuster. But Blockbuster, in a state of hubris, thought, we're going to keep doing the things we've been doing because it's been successful in the past. Wow, how did that work out? Now look at Netflix. And I mean, those of you who are probably younger than 25 don't even know what Blockbuster is. Anyway, the bottom line to this message is I encourage all of you, be vulnerable, have humility, really look at yourself inside and say, you know, are we doing what we need to be doing to not be prideful, to not have hubris dominate our business? So anyway, that is my message to you today. That is the tip of the week, and be looking for Equalizer 9 tip of the week next week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Are you a part of the Equalizer 9 mailing list? We would love for you to be a part of the Equalizer 9 community. So go to the link below in the description, sign up for it, and you will get the Equalizer 9 tips of the week right in your mailbox each week. Again, I'm Hal Ruth. Thank you so much for watching.